Hi folks, Harry Frank from Red Giant here, and in this tutorial I'll be showing you a plugin called Line from Red Giant Universe. At its heart, Line is a tool that simply draws a line from one point to another point in two-dimensional space. But there's a lot more to this plugin, so let's dig into the interface and find what we've got. Now, up at the top, there are some presets, and this actually will probably make more sense as I uncover the different parts of the interface. So let's come back to this and how this is useful. So right now we've got point 1, which is over here, and we've got the locator point right here. And we have point 2, which is over here. You'll notice that we've got point 1 shape, which is set to a circle. And if I twirl this open, we can see that we've got a color and size for the point 1 shape. And if it is oriented, which we can't see very well with a circle, so let's set that to something like target. So right now it is not oriented, and if I check that, this is now oriented to it. Now you notice on the other side there is also a shape, but point 2 has no shape right now. This is because this shape is at the leading tip of the line as it draws on. So if I change this draw on value from 0 to 100, you'll see that it connects from point 1 to point 2. And at the point where the line is drawing on, there is a shape attached there as well. This is called the primary shape. Right now we're looking at the primary line. Now this primary line has a number of settings in here that we can change to make the line perhaps gradient, thicker or thinner. And up here at the top, this is where I define that primary shape that is drawing on. So let's say I set this to an open arrow and I make it a little bit smaller by going to the primary shape size and bringing that down. So at this point, maybe I'd like the shape and the line and this first shape here for point 1 all to be the same color. Let's say I just want these all to be white. So let's go to our presets here. I can click on solid white and that will set all the different colors to a simple solid white. What if I like them to be some sort of gradient? I can use a gradient preset. There's a couple different gradient presets, solid color presets in here just to make things easy for you. So I'll work with a solid white and let's draw this back over to 100%. And let's talk about the different types of lines we have. In this Bezier section here, right now we're using an auto curve. So this is kind of taking its best guess as to how to create a pleasing curvature between point 1 and point 2 based on their relative position to each other. This is often pretty useful. In fact, there's even an auto tweak here where you can sort of adjust the tension of that curve. But there's other types of lines in here. A linear line is simply a line without any curvature, and it's just a straight line between point 1 and point 2. We can use a 3-point line, which allows us to manually adjust with a control point here exactly how this line draws on. There's also a 4-point, which basically uses tangents like so to draw on the line. And again, this all uses the draw on feature like so. Now, on top of all of that, there's actually a secondary line. We can enable this, so we can say make a secondary line that is solid, uses whatever color we set. Let's say we set this to a red. And right now you see the primary lines drawing on top. I can go down here, set this to draw underneath, and there's a little bit of an offset. So we could perhaps use this to create kind of a drop shadow effect or whatever type of effect that you're looking for. If I mimic the same settings in terms of the shape, so I've set this to an open arrow, and that would be the secondary shape that I need to make a little bit bigger. Let's also make that a red. So these are solid. They can also be dashed. One can be dashed, the other can be solid. There's a lot that you can do in here with this. So let's show this in action. Let's hop over to Premiere. New to Line in Universe 2.1 is the ability to add text directly within the plugin rather than having to use an external text tool. So let me show you how to create this type of animation. This map I'm using is actually a pretty big map. This is 5,000 pixels wide, and this is from Bing. Bing allows commercial usage of their map imagery as long as you credit Bing with a logo. So we'll do that first. Let's drop the Bing logo on here to make sure we are giving credit where credit is due. There's the Bing logo, and we will make this a lower left bug. So I'll move my position to the lower left, and I'll set the scale to probably about 20%. So with the map, I'll do some very basic animation here. So I'll go to my position parameter, and we'll move this so that we're going to center the Midwest of the United States, kind of right in the middle there. and our starting point will be Detroit. So I'm going to set a keyframe right there for position, and a few seconds later, I'll move this over to center Europe, right in the frame, and we will be going to Paris today. Now, before I move forward, I should actually adjust the speed of this animation. I'm going to do this simply by going to showing my position keyframes here. When I select one of these, I should be able to adjust the speed curve. I'm going to drag that down. Select this one, drag that down. So rather than being an abrupt, jerky, linear motion, this will be much smoother. I'm actually going to slow down the duration of this. We'll make this maybe a 3-second or so animation. So next I'll apply the line effect directly to the map. And let's fine tune the positions here. So I'll go to my effect controls, select universe line, and this will give me the on-screen point controls. So I can see my 0.1 position right there, and we jump to the end. Let's put this right where it's going to go. Now by default, 0.2 doesn't have its own shape. If I move the draw on value to be less than 100, we can see that it actually doesn't have its shape because we're also adding a shape at the draw on tip. And actually for this map, I'm going to turn that off. So I'll go to the primary shape and set this to none so we don't have a triangle right on the primary line. And we'll add a shape to 0.2. So we'll go in here to 0.2 shape and select circle. So at this point, we need the line to draw on. This is really quite easy. I'll just set the draw on to 0, set a keyframe for that. Jump to the end and set this to 100. There, quite easy. So now let's add the text labels. Let's close some of this stuff up. So inside the 0.1 attributes, we have a 0.1 text label. Inside here, I can click the Edit Text button, and we have a new text edit window. This is a very simple single line piece of text that we can add. So in this case, we will add Detroit, Michigan. And here we can select anything that has been loaded on your system, including fonts from the Adobe Typekit that you can activate via the Creative Cloud. So I'll select one of those. In fact, I want to jump to the B's, so I'll hit the letter B, and that hops up right there to B. Let's select this one right here. These are scrubbable sliders right here that we can use to adjust size as well as tracking. Or you can pick a size from the pop-up list. Now, if I don't like the size, I can still adjust the size right here in the effects controls. So I can go to 0.1 size, and let's set this to, let's say, 92. Let's hop to the end. So I'll hit play. And on 0.2, we will add another label. So I'll go to 0.2 attributes, 0.2 text label, click on Edit Text. And our type was 92. Note that once I select this, I can also arrow up and down through the fonts. Click OK. Other controls you have available in here are things like an XY offset. So if I'd like to take this text and fine tune its position relative to that point, I can do so right there.
Now, sometimes you do want to use more than one line of text or a more complex text layout. And for that, use this following workflow.
Now, often in Premiere, if you're working on some sort of informative video where you need to point at something, you need to pull out some sort of arrow to point at a specific spot on your screen. So this is a perfect time to use a line. So in this case, I would use something like a black video. When in Premiere, we need something to apply this effect to. We can apply it to the video, but it kind of limits our ability to sort of easily edit the arrow on and off. So I'll just create a piece of black video. This is often called a dummy video or a slug or whatever you'd like to call it. So to that video, the black video, I'm going to apply universe line. And we can see, again, those default settings here. So if you want to use the default settings, let's say we want to put this up here and point right down here at the edge when we want to point out to check the edge so that there's no sharp cracks or cuts or anything like that. Maybe you want to use a 3-point curve and maybe kind of have it swoop down like that. Now, if that's a little too fancy, you want to kind of scale this down in terms of how fancy we're getting here. Maybe you could just make it a solid red, and maybe you just want a basic arrow. So we could select basic arrow and just kind of point down to the edge like that. Now, if we're working in After Effects, After Effects has a very powerful tracker in there. So we can actually track images and attach the tracking data to one or both of the points with the line tool. So let's explore how that would look. So I'm going to apply Universal Line, and I've already got this tracked. So I have some basic tracking data right here. I have a tracker, and I've got this attach point that I can use as my location. So I'll go to my Universe Line, and we'll do 0.1, and we'll attach 0.1 to where the glass is. So we'll go in here under 0.1 and copy the attach point and paste it to 0.1. And let's move 0.2 perhaps over here. So now it's attached exactly where I tracked it. I'd like to shift that around a little bit. And in After Effects, this is pretty easy to do. All I need to do is click on that actual parameter, which will select all of the keyframes for that parameter. And if I slide them over here like this, then we'll move all the keyframes relative to each other. Now, at this point, again, I'd like to make this maybe solid white, and let's make this a linear arrow, and let's set this to use a target, and let's go to that primary shape, make that a little bit bigger. Under primary animation, we can say do not orient that shape to the path of the line, and let's make the line a little less thick. So let's set that to maybe 5, and also let's set circle 1 over to a target, or 0.1, I should say, and maybe we need to make that one a little bit bigger, and also uncheck the orient. So now we've got 0.1, which is tracked, and 0.2, which is locked to a fixed point in space. So I can move that around. Now, again, I can even attach this text to that point too. So in this case, I might use a simple expression. So I'm going to Alt or Option click on the position for the text, and we'll attach it to 0.2's position. So let's go to Universe Line 0.2 and use the pick whip, drag this down here and attach it to 0.2's location. So as I move this around, or if this were to animate in, this would be locked to that position. And maybe I'll set this to a dashed line. So let's go to my primary line here and set this to a dashed line like that. So that's the basics of the line plugin in Red Giant Universe. My name's Harry Frank. Thank you so much for watching.